everyone, and welcome to the Maitland City Council meeting of April 10th, 2023. If you would please silence your phones. And if you would also, anybody who wants to talk to us during the open period or for any of the other items that are on the agenda, see we have a couple of ordinances, please fill out a speaker card. We're going to try to institute that as a new tradition in Maitland. Almost great way to do that. Let's begin the evening with a moment of silence. If you please join me. Okay, thank you. And now, if you please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a presentation this evening. Stacy Larson may be in the house. Would you join me up here, Stacy?
I'm always in the house.
You're always in the house. If you would let me, I would read a proclamation for national language. Okay. Whereas libraries are accessible and inclusive places that foster a sense of connection and build community, extending far beyond the four walls of a building and welcoming everyone. And whereas library infrastructure advances communities, providing internet and technology access, literacy skills, and support for businesses, job seekers, and entrepreneurs. And whereas in times of crisis, libraries and library professionals play an invaluable role in supporting their communities both in person and virtual. And whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the populations they serve and ensure equity of access for all. And whereas libraries are expanding their resources to meet the needs of their patrons through access to multimedia content, programs, and classes, as well as books, offering opportunities for everyone to connect with new ideas and become their best selves. And whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions for all members of the community, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. And whereas libraries are cornerstones of democracy, promoting the free exchange of information and ideas for all. And whereas librarians and information professionals provide expertise, services, and guidance for patrons to access credible sources and material, making their own informed decisions about the world today. And whereas America is celebrating National Library Week, including April 25th as the National Library Workers' Day, highlighting the immeasurable contributions made by library workers. April 26th as National Outreach Day, showing library services are not limited to their physical location. And April 27th as Take Action for Libraries Day, encouraging community support for libraries. Now therefore, I, John P. Lowndes, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the Mayor of the City of Maitland, do hereby proclaim the week of April 23rd, 2023 through April 29th, 2023 as National Library Week in the City of Maitland, Florida, and encourage all residents to connect with the Maitland Public Library by visiting online or in person to access resources and services. And I'll present to you with this proclamation. I didn't give you much to say, but it has something for us.
Thank you. Yeah, that was certainly a lot of whereases. But we do a lot of things, and we serve a lot of people, and it's always been our focus to make sure that every person in Maitland feels welcome when they come in the doors, that every adult, every child can find characters in books that represent who they are, what they feel, what their life experiences have been, and that we have nonfiction resources to help you learn all kinds of new things to become a better person, whether it is learning to read, learning to garden, learning to crochet, just growing up on your history. We've got books for all of that. So we work very hard to make our place welcoming and to make sure that everybody who comes through the door does feel like they belong. It's the heart of the community, and we work hard to make it be so. I would point out one thing in here, April 27th, which is Take Advocacy for Libraries. Please contact your legislators. State aid is on ballot this year, up in legislature every year. It's there every year, and we love to have support to get some of that state aid for us. So contact your senator, contact your house. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple of public hearings. First is an ordinance reading, the second reading of a police officer and firefighter's pension. Lori, would you please read the ordinance title?
An ordinance of the City of Maitland, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 4, Division 4, Police Officers and Firefighters of the City Code, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you. Mike, would you please introduce the item?
Yes, sir. I gave you a pretty involved presentation at the introduction last time, so I'll spare you that this time and just hit the high points of this ordinance. The board met on December 14th and voted to forward this to you. It's primarily administrative in nature. It deals with employees that have opted for the 20 and out at any age receive a refund on the amounts they paid in to get that additional benefit, to receive a refund of the contributions they later decide to opt out of the 20 and out. It also allows members in the event of the death prior to retirement to make other beneficiary elections prior to their actual retirement. Changes the age of the IRS age for minimum distribution because that was changed on the federal level, and it clarifies the payout period for the sheriff plan. We had the board's actuary look at this. There's no financial impact on the plan, so based upon that, staff would recommend approval.
Okay. See if we have any questions, Mark? Seeing none, let's open the item for public comment. Does anybody from the public have any comment on this item? Seeing none, let's close the public period. Any further discussion? And if not, the motion will be
I'll move the motion.
we have a motion
Second.
and a second about the ordinance. Lori, would you please read the roll?
Councilmember Guthrie,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison,
Aye.
Councilmember Wurzel, Councilmember Wild,
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, we have another ordinance. Second reading of the zoning map amendment. And Laura, would you please read the title of that ordinance?
An ordinance of the City of Maitland, Florida, amending the official zoning map, a part of Article 1 of the Maitland Land Development Code by changing the zoning classification of the property located at 473 South Keller Road, further described herein from plan development to West Side New Market District, and providing for an effective date.
Okay. Dan, it looks like you're ready to introduce the item for us.
Yes, sir. And similar to the last ordinance that was discussed in a little bit more detail last one, I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights of it. As you recall, the property is located on South Keller Road, or on the west side of South Keller Road, just south of Fennel. The Land Development Code gives us 10 specific criteria that we look at when deciding whether the proposed ordinance meets the intent of the Land Development Code and the comprehensive plan. So as you recall, in February of 2023, the DRC recommended unanimously approval of the proposed rezoning, and in March, P&Z recommended unanimously for approval, and on March 27th, you guys introduced this ordinance. So tonight, what we're asking for is that we recommend council adopt the ordinance amending the official zoning map located on 473 South Keller Road, consistent with the findings in the DRC recommendation report dated February 1st, 2023, and the March 2nd, 2023 P&Z recommendation. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. The applicant's also here for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Does anybody have any questions of Dan on this item? Okay. Seeing none, let's open it up for public comment. Does anybody have any public have any comment on this item? Anybody at all? Seeing none, let's close the public period. And if there's no further discussion, the motion would be in order.
I will move to adopt the ordinance number 1418, amending the official zoning map from planned development to Westside New Market located at 473 South Keller Road based on the findings that the proposed rezoning meets all applicable requirements of the Land Development Code as outlined in the February 1, 2023 DRC recommendation report.
I will second that beautifully worded motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Lauren, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Wurzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Weil.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan. Okay, we have two new ordinances on our books. Any old business? Mark, is there any old business to report?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody on council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? All right. Is there anybody from the public who would have any comments on consent agenda items number 2 through 6?
I didn't do a card.
Okay, do we have the cards up there?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Okay, Dale, if you want to go ahead, we can.
Yeah, I wanted to pull down item number 6 if I could. Thought that was worthy of public discussion, public interaction, where we're proposing a new agreement for our de facto city leader. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I would say this, Dale, that if you have any comment on it, and if nobody pulls it, then it's not going to be pulled, but if you have any comment on it, now would be a good time to.
Well, I believe it's worthy of some public exposure. I don't believe that we've ever had any discussion about this. I realize something has taken 4 or 5 months to formulate, and is worthy of discussion.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else who has any public comment this evening on the consent agenda, items 2 through 6? Okay, seeing none, let's close the public comment period.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Laura, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Wurzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Weil.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, all right, now is the time for the public period for anybody who would like to address council on any item that's not on the agenda this evening. Is there anybody who would like to comment on any item not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, let's close the public period and move into discussion. We have a workforce housing incentives item. Councilmember Guthrie has asked this to be put on the agenda.
Yeah.
Guthrie, would you like to walk us through it?
Yeah. So I just thought it was time for this discussion. In fact, I've been talking to Dan and Barrett and a couple people on planning and zoning for a while about this. And, and I think everybody dropped off a little sheet that, the Live Local app just came out a couple weeks ago, so there's information for you. So if you don't know about it, you get a better understanding. But that Live Local Act, they approved $711 million to invest in multiple programs, anywhere from Hometown Heroes, the CDBG, and some other programs that are out there. I thought that, and I guess really what I'm looking for is a discussion on this at a later date, maybe a workshop, but for us to go ahead and get an idea of what our vision is, what our goals are, so we're not in 3-4 years if something comes to us, we're not stuck going, all right, where do we want to put this? How do we want to use it? You see Orange County doing a lot of the, I guess a lot of people call it workforce housing, but it's already being done in Orange County and other areas, and I think it's just something that we need to look at, especially when it comes to multifamily. I think really that's where we're going to see it mostly at, and we need to say, listen, is that something, like a lot of places are doing it in their CRA, is that something we want to look at? Do we want to look at the west side? What do we want to do? And kind of get a game plan, an idea. And one of my thoughts is that we do a workshop, and there's a gentleman in Orange County, Mitchell Glasser. I don't know if y'all know him, but he's the guru of this for Orange County. I thought it'd be great to send an invitation out to him, see if he could come in and just do a quick discussion with us, a little Q&A, give us, what they're doing, so we can have a kind of idea of how we want to do this in Maitland. So that is where I am going with this, and I would guess at the end of this discussion, I would request if we could do a workshop on it.
Okay. Is that is the idea to increase the affordability of housing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
So and incentivize it. I mean, we have a lot of ways we can incentivize it, and I've read other ways that people have incentivized, and that's another thing we need to look at. What do we want to do to incentivize this? I mean, is it something where we say, we're allowing 30 units per acre, and we say, we'll give you 35 if you do those 5 affordable housing, or do we waive some kind of impact fee or something to incentivize the developers to want to do this? And I think Mr. Glasser also works with a whole bunch of developers that do this kind of work, so he would know, and I think it would be a good opportunity to come in and say, this is where we're at, this is, we need a plan for our future, and see what it is, because right now, I mean, a lot of our police, fire, and staff can't afford to live in the area, live in Maitland. Our median household, I think, is what I saw the other day was $84,000. So, I mean, apartments aren't cheap around here, so I thought it'd just be a good opportunity to look at that and try to do the best we can to, make some affordable housing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I know Mitch Glasser rather, he's still in the county, he's still working.
That's what I'm understanding.
Because he was the guru when I was there, that was a long time ago. Do you think he'd come and talk to us, or have you reached out to him yet, or?
I have not reached out to him.
Okay. And Patrick, what is the Live Local Act? Is that, I mean, Cliff gave us some thumbnail sketch of it, and when I read and when I've heard, the idea now is affordable housing can go anywhere in your city, wherever they want to, they get full entitlement to.
Not quite as broad as that, but that's where it's headed. It is from a home rule or local control standpoint, it's a daunting piece of legislation. Let's say it does the way, I don't think the league's put out a whole lot of analysis of it, but you can certainly read it and see where if you're in zone commercial or industrial, you can then build multifamily or mixed use without going through the standard approval process that everybody else has to go through, and whether or not your comp plan conflicts with it or not, there's a way to read this to say they get to do it anyway. Because it's an odd bill because it does a couple things. It's written in the language of promoting affordable housing, and it also strips your ability to have rent controls.
Yeah, which you would think they would go hand in hand, right?
You would. I'm completely just opining here.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of money in residential, maybe where commercial is not going that way. And so a lot of projects that originally were designed for commercial, there's a lot of communities that want commercial. They don't want the multifamily, but the demand goes where the profit is. So I do not know what the effects of this will be, but they could be quite significant. So I think certainly after FMAA and between now and then, I think Jake, one of the things before he departs is we're putting together a memo of what we see, but certainly this will affect every community.
And if I'm right, they also, I mean, the height restriction for the city, you go by what they're right.
The way I've read it is whatever your max is in your city, they can do.
Yeah.
So if you have an overlay district that says it's limited to 2 stories, but somewhere else you can have 3 or 4, well then they can do 3 or 4, depending on what it is. So it's not you're going to go up 20 stories, but it's whatever the max is, they can do.
Oh, and I forgot to mention this, we do have in our comprehensive development plan for affordable housing.
Right, and that's an element in most places.
Yeah. And
then whether or not your other elements and your goals and your policies conflict with this legislation, and then what happens, that's yet to be determined. But certainly it's written in a way that the legislation, just like any other piece of legislation, if the state preempts your ability to do it, even if the state also requires you to have a comprehensive plan that's your constitution, not sure how that's going to pan out.
I mean, we could have a developer come in tomorrow and say, I want to do this, and, anytime.
It's not effective until July 1st,
Okay.
so not tomorrow.
If there's a requirement that it has to go through a PD process, is it the PD process?
That's one way to read it. Whether or not it actually does or not, what it does is, so you have meetings, right? You have hearings, quasi-judicial hearings, and you vote on it. It's supposed to be administratively approved.
What I'm hearing on that,
Shall.
Mike, is they're not really sure yet. Like,
Right.
it hasn't been clarified.
It hasn't been in effect, or it's not in effect until July. It's recently come out, but it's written very broadly.
But in a straight zone district?
They wouldn't have to, if they were commercial, they wouldn't have to come in and do a PD to then build multifamily.
But in terms of the effect, like there's a lot of punitive measures in there against cities who act contrary to this, so it would be a risk to
Right.
test the limits of the bill anyway.
But there's a lot of, it's an incredibly long piece of legislation, and so what it means and how it will actually play out, I am sure there's going to have to be some corrective legislation because it is so broad, and I think it will have a lot of unintended consequences. But it's a significant piece of legislation, but it affects everybody.
A small city like Maitland doesn't want to be part of the corrective legislation or the lawsuits that we.
Right, and we already have the Preemption Act that's on the books, so if it preempts your ability to do something, and then the remedies for that, so you get it. So I would just proceed with caution, but certainly by July before July 1, we'll have a legal opinion in place for you that you can rely on about how to proceed.
So is it really, it just affects then the commercial and industrial zoning areas of the city that,
The current commercial and industrial, but you can imagine why a lot of people would want to change the commercial and industrial if it was consistent with the comprehensive plan or the future land use plan.
So I would actually think from a legal perspective that you delivering a legal memo to us, advising us on the perils of this would be a much more informative way for us to understand how we should proceed rather than discussing in the open a strategic way of dealing with this, because I think then we're actually putting ourselves in a vulnerable position for lawsuits.
You're using a highlighter if you do that. for
Right,
sure.
right, okay.
But also at the same time, the reality is developers know about this. Developers probably crafted this. So it's not something that the folks who will want to use it don't already know about.
so this will have the effect of greatly increasing or potentially greatly increasing affordable housing.
It will, which is the biased language, that's the positive impact that it's supposed to have. At the same time, it removes price controls.
Right. So that, I mean, this may get where we're going, where you were interested in going without doing it. Right? I mean, if this legislation is essentially allowing affordable housing in our commercial or industrial, or anybody wants to change their commercial or industrial, I guess it makes it.
Well,
that
I mean,
much
commercial's in
easier.
our CRA, right? So they can do it downtown here, they can do it on the west side.
Well, we wouldn't want to necessarily agree to that. Right? Or keep that.
I don't think there's a choice. If the developer wants to come in and come downtown, he can say, I want to build affordable housing right there. So.
I think we should not talk about this further per se, and I would, a couple things, just, I think increasing density, which is often one of the tools here, I would be reluctant to do at this point. And then I think we should let this particular bill play itself out and the analysis of it play it out before we start discussing this with someone else. That's just my thought.
While that's not legal advice, I think that's very good advice.
I didn't give legal advice.
I will say
Not
too
this
that
capacity.
it's a laudable goal, like something I care very much about in general in Maitland, is making sure it's affordable for people to live here, particularly people who work in Maitland and may not normally be able to afford to live here. However, it seems like there could be a lot of unintended or perhaps intended consequences to this bill, one of which is if we were to try to draw affordable housing to Maitland at this particular juncture, then we're inviting people to be able to go outside of our land development code and all those things that help us to control what that looks like in Maitland, and that sort of.
Right, I didn't know at the time that it wasn't in effect for another couple months, so.
Yeah, so that's kind of.
So, yeah, I wouldn't be calling it right now, but.
So should we hold off that, do you think? I'm glad you raised it, but should we wait until
Yeah,
that sounds a little
that
better?
sounds like it's the best advice, but,
Okay.
well, I just wanted to bring it to our attention.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, thank you. Anything else? Anybody else have any thoughts on this? Okay, well, thank you, Vance, for bringing that to us. Reports, Mr. City Attorney of the day.
I don't have any report for the day.
Okay. You can go the whole 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks since you've seen it, City Attorney. Okay, Mr. City Manager.
Yes.
Not interim any longer, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that. Some upcoming events, don't forget Volunteer Appreciation Barbecues tomorrow, 5:30, right across here at A&H at Jermaine Marble Building and outside. Got a pretty good crowd showing up for that, so very pleased with that. Fort Maitland Park will reopen. Our schedule is for Monday, April 17th. So we're shooting for that. We have a walkthrough this week with Burkhardt Construction to make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be, but they should be able to have that all buttoned up by Monday, April 17th, to open the park. Last get down downtown of the season will be Friday, May 5th, here on Independence Lane, so we're looking forward to that after on the heels of the success of the Jazz and Blues Festival. We have our tree giveaway, 9 o'clock Sunday, April 30th. If you want a tree, get there early, because they go fast. And then on the heels of that, we have our Earth Day, Arbor Day Farmers Market, 9:30 to 1:30 here on Independence Lane. We have 3 car dealers that will have their electrical vehicles on display. The Avian Reconditioning Center of Apopka will have some birds down here that they're working to get back rehabbed, and Duke Energy will be giving away some smaller trees as part of that, among the other things that we're doing with the Arbor Day Farmers Market. And last but not least, we're going to be having a composting class with 3 composters that will be at 10 o'clock on May 27th at the Maitland Public Library. Thank you for helping us out, Stacy. So, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Anybody in council have any reports? Mike? Okay.
Well, there's just so many positive things for, first of all, our new fire chief, which I know has been all over the social media and everything, but that's super exciting, so congratulations. And we got a really cool email from the owners of Sanford Brewery about the Jazz and Blues Festival, which was very complimentary of all of our staff in terms of how it all went, so that was very nice as well. I had occasion to be in the library, Stacey, on Sunday, trying to escape the noise of my home to quiet, and I walked into unwittingly a tea party, which was not quiet. So I went somewhere else, but I heard not only was I welcomed by someone who I've never met to make sure I felt welcome to come into the tea party, but I then heard them welcome every single person who walked in that direction so that they didn't feel like they were walking into something they weren't supposed to be in. And I thought that was so nice based on what Stacey said tonight about making people feel welcome, that you are definitely doing that.
Awesome, great. And yes, I would echo those, and welcome new fire chief and new city manager, and we are looking forward to great things with both of them. So I think that's it for the evening. Let's adjourn.